everyone, and welcome to a new episode of ReelPR with me, Fiona Scott. How are you? Hope that you're having a good week, good month, good year, good whatever. Whatever you're doing, I know you're going to get a lot of value out of today's episode. I'm joined by fellow journalist and kick-ass journalist Liz Perkins. So let's get into it.
Well, it's good to be back on. Really nice to see you. So I'm Liz Perkins. I night news edit on the Sunday Telegraph and the Telegraph, and I've also freelance stories right across the nationals as well. If you were tuning in to True Crime, the network on CBS the other night, you probably saw me talking about a crime story in Swansea, and I just end up everywhere, really, from Times Radio to all sorts, to be honest.
Right, okay. So what can you tell us about that? Because I can't let that one go. And I did see a post on it on social media. So tell us what you can about that, Liz.
Basically, there was a story in Swansea that I did years ago about a guy called Brian Whitelock who was released from prison even though he had killed somebody and he was also involved in the manslaughter of somebody else. And the family didn't know that he was released from prison. And they were just walking down the street and suddenly saw him as they were just roaming around basically. And he was been placed on this release warrant and he was allowed to go out and just wander and be wherever. And they were just like, how is my Colette uncle allowed to be back here? Because obviously that's where he committed his crimes, was in Swansea. And I had a TV production company get in touch saying, look, could you speak about this and speak about the case as well? So that went out on CBS's True Crime channel last night. And, it was just such a horrendous case because, for him to go out and kill again. And he ended up defending himself in court because he dismissed two of his defense teams because he could tell they wouldn't be able to get him off on grounds of diminished responsibility. So it was just one of the most horrible, horrible cases because anybody who covers Swansea in South Wales knows that there's not really that many murders that happen, which is amazing. But when they do, it's, when they're as horrible as that, it's just how on earth are people able to be released from prison when they do that. And obviously now he's been given a full life tariff, so he will not be seen in Swansea again. Yeah,
So
pretty.
when you covered the story, Liz, what did that involve? Did it involve, did you ever meet the man?
No, I didn't. I didn't, luckily. But it was more that I met his family. His family were campaigning for him to be put behind bars again, and he was returned to prison, but then obviously was able to come out and kill. So it's just, you don't imagine these kind of things are just going to land in your lap, but people in that part of the world are very happy to just talk about all sorts of anything that's going on. And they were just so, so shocked and really needed to do something about it, that they felt that the best way of doing it was to speak to a journalist and just publicising their campaign to get him returned to prison, which worked for a time, but unfortunately, he was actually allowed back out. For how on earth he got through the parole board, I have no idea. It's just really shocking to me and to them as well.
Okay, so clearly anyone can tell listening to you, you're from South Wales.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
how do people find you then? How do these things come across your radar, Liz?
Do you know, I mean, because of the nature of the stories that I've done, I mean, I guess within Wales and within, people who love sport will know me from exposing sexism and misogyny in the Welsh Rugby Union. People who follow my stories and see that I've done a lot of work around domestic abuse, then they find ways and means of finding me. It's incredible. Social media just makes the world so tiny these days. So, people send me messages on LinkedIn saying, look, I've seen you've done this story. Would you consider doing my story? I had somebody just over the weekend messaging me on Instagram saying, hey, any chance that I could speak to you? One of my friends suggested that I should talk to you about my case. And, it can be on X, it can be on wherever, really. It's just whatever forum that people notice me on. They just basically message and say, oh, hey, I've seen you on this, or I've seen your work on that. And, and I've done such a wide variety of stories. It's not specific to those stories. I mean, I've done crime stories, I've done royal stories, you name it. It's like general news stories. I mean, I interviewed Joe Marler however many days ago was it now, and was back, I think it was Tuesday of last week, and Jeff Brazier off the TV, and so I'm meeting all sorts of different kind of people. And then back in September, he interviewed General Petraeus, who was in charge of the US Army. So there's no depends on how people get hold of me. They just find ways and means. And I do reply. I do reply because you think, oh well, that sounds like an amazing story, and I will give them the time, although life is pretty hectic.
Yeah, I know. I have noticed that about you when I've suggested stories to you. And I like the way your brain works because I think even though I focus heavily on PR these days, I just think that journalistic instinct is just there and will never go away.
Mm. It just never leaves you, does it? And and you kind of smell out a story and you think, oh yeah, that's really good. And you just react to it and think, and sometimes if it's like such an amazing story, you've kind of got to do it now, you've got to do it that day, and you have to move everything else and just write it and get it out there. And it's, there is a sense of urgency with some of these things. Others, maybe can wait. And sometimes it's frustrating that you have to wait for some stories to be published. But I'm not a most patient person in the world because I'm used to doing everything now and today and getting it done. But you kind of got to react to whatever comes in really and see what needs to go first.
Okay, so we're approaching the end of 2025. Come on, give us a couple of your favorite stories of this year.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I mean, look, I loved interviewing Joe Marler the other day. He's talking about his comeback. He wants to make a comeback to the England team at 35. He's got 5 caps away from getting 100. Everybody loves him on Celebrity Traitors. And, could you imagine if he does come back? I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to see him in an England shirt. He's never been boring, that's for sure. I know he's sort of wound up a few fans and, across the country. But yeah, he's never dull. He's never dull at all. I guess I love doing, going to Wimbledon, obviously. I think we've mentioned before, and,
Mhm.
speaking to everybody from Novak Djokovic to Arina Sabalenka and Emma Raducanu and Carlos Alcaraz, and writing all those kinds of stories. Obviously amazing. I think amongst your clients, wow, you've got a bit of a superstar in Louise Mersage. I mean, wow, she's been in Women's Own this year, and she's also appeared in the Sun Fabulous magazine. And I just think what a brave lady to talk about alcoholism and, I mean, spending tens of thousands of pounds on alcohol and coming out the other side after doing so for 22 years and being a successful businesswoman. And I know she's had like messages from all sorts of people saying how amazing she is, how inspirational she is. Fantastic. I mean, and you just think this is a woman who sat on a chair in front of me at your summit, and she was incredibly emotional. And I think it was a very emotional afternoon. And she just basically laid out her life bare in front of everybody. And now she's done it in front of millions upon millions of people in this country. And everybody's like taken to her. And she's been everywhere. Incredible. So yeah, and I mean, obviously having the opportunity to interview General Petraeus, that was like a big thing because he turned down 5 other news outlets and only agreed to me because basically I've been to Afghanistan 6 times, and he said, yeah, I want to speak to you. And I was like, yeah, this is great, and talked about Ukraine and the way that potentially that war could be ended. So obviously a great scoop to get. So yeah, but it's the year hasn't finised yet. And
No,
I'm
no, no, no. I don't,
no,
and you'll never finish, Liz. Your feet will never touch the ground for very long.
and I know I'm going to be working on another exclusive in a couple of weeks that I can't talk about right now, but I'm happy to in the future. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and yeah, there's so many great stories, honestly, and some very tragic ones. But I got to say, and I also loved the one about Christine Marsh. I mean, your client, who, how on earth do you become a model at 84? And she's just turned 85, and there she is in the middle of London Fashion Week, and she used to work for GCHQ, and I know she still does business consultancy, but like 85, wearing like designer clothes and rocking it on the London catwalk. I mean, how many people get to do that? That's
I
just like
know.
so
We
cool.
I actually saw her and she was showing me the pictures with extreme pride at the
Yeah, it's
weekend. So
amazing.
yeah. I'm
Amazing.
I'm very lucky, and I often think it's because of my journalist background that I attract and choose to work with a real eclectic mix of people rather than people who are all in the same thing. Because I want to go back to the summit, which was the first one I'd run of that size. And I know you'd worked with me before on where it was just you and a few people. I just wanted to let people listening in or watching this, Liz, know how rare it is to get the opportunity to sit down and literally pitch your stories, your life experience, your expertise to someone like you. I think people don't realise what a rare opportunity that is.
It never really happens. I mean, people like me are
Mm.
so busy, and my day has been completely crazy just today. So, and to have the chance to do that is so, so rare. And, you don't usually get to meet national news editors or journalists or whatever in a situation like that. So, and for me, I mean, that's the first time that I've done anything like
Mm.
that and actually gone out and met people within the business community and spoken to them about their stories. I mean, look, when I was starting out, I would go out there and go and meet people who would ask to, do their stories. And that's what happens. But I think because of the pressures of time and, people trying to get web hits and all this kind of stuff, it means that actually there's not that much opportunity for members of the public right across the UK to meet people who work in like London based newspapers. It really doesn't happen. And it's kind of like they have to reach out, like I say, on social media platforms and just say, hey, I've got this story, or fire through an email. And sometimes these emails don't necessarily get picked up, especially if you're messaging a London news desk, which is incredibly busy and they have to sift through email after email. So what you've got going there is great because, for me to have the chance to meet the people that you work with has just been incredible. And obviously, we've managed to have lots of different conversations. And, me meeting them has meant that they've ended up in the Telegraph and Woman's Own and the Sudden Fabulous magazine, and will end up in the Independent and Take a Break magazine. And you have to think, if these people hadn't met somebody like me, then some of them are getting like a million eyeballs on just one story in print and millions more online. And you can't really, unless you spend a substantial amount of money, you can't really buy that advertising. You
You
just
can.
can't.
And also, I think really I tried to educate them not to put pressure on you, Liz, because they have to understand the news agenda is not something you or I hugely control. So and
No.
many other factors control the news agenda that you and I don't control. And I think in that they realised that knowing you and having patience was really key to the success that you've had placing some of their stories.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I did an interview back with one of your clients in March, and I knew it was a good story. I really knew it was a good story because instinct kind of tells you, you think, yeah, this
Mm.
is a really good story. And I kind of went around the houses with it and I didn't go anywhere. And I kept on trying and trying. And I just thought, how on earth is nobody picking up on this? And watch out for it in the Sun Fabulous magazine. And I think it's Sunday coming, I believe. So yeah, it's just amazing. I'm not able to say who it is or anything like that yet, but you know, it does take time. And there's people's stories that I've got in my books going, right, where can I pitch this? And I have pitched these stories out to different people. They haven't been featured yet. But I just think, oh, it's about timing, it's about this, it's about that. Oh, it's about, maybe I wait for this publication, that publication. And you know, it comes off at some point, but it doesn't necessarily come off in a week or a month or whatever. Some do. Some do. You have people wanting virtually a bidding war over some stories and they're desperate. I mean, there's one that's going to take a break, and literally they were all desperate to feature this person, and it'll come out in November. But it's just, you never can tell. You never can tell. I know a good story, what it looks like, but even somebody like me has problems in getting things placed sometimes because if it doesn't work for the Telegraph, you're like going, right, where is this going to go? Because some stories just don't suit certain publications.
That's right. And sometimes you might not know in the background what else they're looking at, what the context of the day, the week, the month is, conversations behind the scene, which as a freelancer, you wouldn't be privy to. There's all sorts of things going on. So Liz, we're going to do a little webinar on 19th of November to meet people. We've already got a few people booked on, and they're going to be sharing some stories with you. What type of things? Just give us an idea. What type of things do you want to be hearing from people? I'm assuming it's not, oh, look at my new product or service and the 20 fine points of the washing machine that I'm selling.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I think the thing is what people don't realize is that yes, okay, you own a business, but what we really, really want to find out is the person behind the business. Because really, we want to know your story. Your stories are unique to you. You're completely different from everybody else. And your selling point is you. And I think if you look at the wider picture, when you talk about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and all these different people who are in the media is because one, obviously they're incredibly successful. They've made a heck of a lot of money. But we also want to know where do they come from? How do they actually get there? Why can't that be you or me? And it's just so when people are picking up a newspaper or they're reading it on a website or they're watching it on the TV, what they want to know is how did you actually get to where you are now and where did you come from and what did you go through? And sometimes it's really painful for people to actually discuss what they've been through. And because obviously we talked about alcoholism, there are people who've had drug addiction, there are people who have been through health issues, but yet they've come out the other side and they've triumphed. And I always think that, you can defy the odds sometimes to actually get to be in the business that you are. Maybe you did a side hustle and you've totally pivoted in terms of your job and now you've got your own business and it's a complete transformation. So you've got to think, are you prepared to tell somebody like me what your real story is? Because that's what people want to read. And then you've got the opportunity to go into these big publications. And it means that you get the advertising for your business on another level. So, but you have to be prepared to admit things about your past maybe that maybe you don't really want to talk about. And is that something for you? I mean, obviously you can do business stories out there and talking about products and all the rest of it and advertise whatever it is you're selling. But I do think the human interest side of it is really what sells your story and sets you apart.
Yeah. And there are journalists that write business to news and business to business news. That isn't you. And I educate all of my clients with, the journalist in front of you is interested in this type of thing. What do you think? I mean, I'm really putting you on the spot here. What do you think will the media or the media you write for be really looking out for in 2026? You got any predictions for us?
That's a good question. The thing is, anything to do with AI, doesn't everybody just talk about AI now? I mean, that's obvious. I mean, you can hinge anything onto that subject because people don't understand it, is the truth. And if
Mm.
you've got that kind of thing, straightforward. I mean, it's kind of a shifting time, isn't it, in Britain at the moment? I think it's quite difficult for a lot of people as well. So, I mean, I guess it's whatever businesses can ride this current storm that we are sort of weathering at the moment would be interesting. But it's hard to predict, isn't it? Because you're just thinking, but I don't think really that stories about people who set up businesses and become hugely successful ever get boring. They
Mm.
don't. We're always going to want stories like that, because everybody wants to be like the person who just breaks through and achieves something that nobody else has just yet. So, guess it's about being innovative always.
And thinking about, I mean, I often see when I was in TV, and I particularly see this around national journalists, it's that the common belief is that we're only interested in bad news, that it's always about bad news. But actually, I've never thought that was fair, especially for you. Obviously, you deal with some really dramatic stories, but you also
Yeah.
tell some very inspirational ones.
But the thing is, I think you have to also take into account that the stories that we've told in terms of your clients have, yes, they've been through horrendous things, but there's a happy ending a lot of the time. I'm not saying that's always the case, but you have to inspire people as well. You can't just go, oh, it's terrible, it's awful, and then not say, oh, well, actually, you know, look at this person now. They've made a huge successful business career, even though they went through X, Y, and Z. And you're like, yeah, you can, but the story has to have some kind of positive take from it. You hope to. I mean, sometimes you can't. I mean, if somebody's been murdered, then clearly what is the positive take, right? There is none. But I think that, if you're reading a feature about somebody who's in business, then surely there's got to be some kind of takeaway that people go, oh, yeah, that's really great. So it's not, but yes, I know bad news does dominate, and all we hear about is wars. But we are trying, but Donald Trump is trying to get us to hear about peace deals as well that may or may not come off.
Yeah. Well, less said soonest. But look, Liz, what about you writing your story? Because you writing a book about your life or parts of your life that'd make pretty good reading, wouldn't it?
I haven't finished yet. I got so much more to do. That's the thing. So that's why I haven't attempted to write my life story, but maybe one day when I actually have a little bit of time, you never know. Maybe I'll get there, but it's just so busy with all these things to juggle. So
Have you been booked yet for any big events, to cover any big events in 2026 you can tell us about?
oh wow, I've been asked to speak in Australia in March, and I'm actually going to Saudi Arabia in a couple of weeks. I've been asked to be a speaker there. I was invited by the Princess of Saudi to go over to Riyadh, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so it's kind of I'm waiting to see what else comes in, but it's just there's always something that does come in. I mean, I spoke recently in Miami, and yeah, it's just that I was moderating over in Montenegro as well. So that was for the Women Political Leaders Summit. So you just don't know, really. It's just, it's like I say, it comes out of nowhere. But if there's opportunities to moderate and be a speaker at different events, then obviously, I will consider that, as well as all the other things that I'm doing.
I was going to say, I mean, how do you, like any business owner, because you're a business owner too, um, how do you deal with that ebb and flow, that famine or feast, or you just trust that things will come in?
It doesn't really feel like a famine, is all I can say.
That's
It's
very
more.
lucky.
Yeah, it's more that, I'm trying to juggle things and time and just trying to work out, it's like today somebody's got in touch with me and I know it's a really big story. It's like, it really is going to be a big story. And you're like, right, okay, that's going to take up my time then. And, probably next month. So it's just, yeah, but I get a lot of people get in touch all the time and it's trying to work out what to say yes or no to. And
Mm,
I'm having to say no to quite a lot of things right now because I'm thinking, is this actually going to work? Do I have the time? Do I have the capacity to do any of this? And so I'm being very selective about what I work on. And I have to be, because otherwise you're just thinking, well, there's certain things I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult to just work out what's a yes and what's a no.
Okay, well, I could talk to you all day, but obviously you don't have time, nor do I.
No,
Um,
I know you're
but
very
no,
busy.
just after speaking to you, I've got one of the finalists from MasterChef coming around to the
Ooh.
podcast. I know. Well, you don't ask, you don't get, Liz.
You. Yes, I know that feeling. That's how I got the feeling.
So might as well ask.
Yes.
But Liz, if anyone is interested or wants to consider at some point sharing a particular story, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. So if you put in Liz Perkins and Sunday Telegraph, you should find me quite easily, or Journo Liz on Instagram, and also Liz Perkins on X. I think the BBC, me on the BBC is in the background on that picture, or some of them anyway, certainly. So those are the best ways.
I really hope you enjoyed listening to Liz there. I'll have her on the podcast again, don't worry. But there's some really good tips and things to think about for 2026. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm at scottmedia.uk. Hop onto Facebook, Fiona Scott's PR Tribe. Just leave your email. It's free. And you can find me on LinkedIn too. Thanks very much and join me again soon.